So I thought it might be hard to film a video about tension in stories because, truth be told, a lot of the times I actually legitimately hate tension. Not hate it as in like this is good because it's eliciting an emotional response from me, which is the job of a story at the end of the day, and I want to go through that range of emotions. Not hate in that way, hate as in like I would rather not be reading and or watching this right now. Like I would rather like go clean the kitchen than watch this tension because I'm actually having no fun and I'm actually frustrated and I don't want any part of this. I used to struggle a lot with adding tension to my stories, so today I'm going to talk about the types of tension I like, the types of tension I don't like, and because in my other AuthorTube seminar series, Wordstock collab video that I did the other week about story openings, you can check it out linked up in the cards, because in that video I had read some examples from my own work and talked about my process behind that, and a lot of people seem to like that. I'm going to do that kind of thing again and give you guys some examples of how I have incorporated elements of tension into my own work while trying to stay free of the tropes that make me want to go and throw a book at the wall. Stick around. What is up, my fellow small business supporters? I am Savvy and I am back today with another Wordstock video. So for those of you who don't know what Wordstock is, it's like Woodstock, the music festival, but instead of with music, it's with words. So basically, you know, like how in a music festival you go there and you see a whole bunch of different artists, with this series on AuthorTube, you can go to the playlist, which I've linked up in the cards, and see a ton of different AuthorTubers making a video on the same topic to all share their own perspectives. This is also called the AuthorTube seminar series. It's been going on for a couple weeks now, and this whole project was created by Robert Jones Story Detective. I have linked his channel either up in the cards or in the description below. I don't know, I'll fix it in post. So make sure to check out his channel because this is a really awesome thing he's doing. And the whole idea is for different authors to kind of share their own perspectives and their own processes behind different elements of a story and what make those elements work in different ways. So since you guys like to listen to me complain, I'm going to talk about why I hate tension. Tension is today's topic. On Wednesday, we also had suspense as a topic, so there's a playlist about suspense. I didn't do a video for that, but I will link it up in the cards anyway so that you guys can check out the videos on suspense. Instead, I decided to do a video about tension, which is today's topic. So when I say I hate tension, what do I mean? Basically, I mean that I get very tense physically when there's types of tension I don't like, and hypertension in my back is a problem because I have really bad scoliosis with two curves in my back, and my back muscles tense up in weird ways, and then I have to go lie on the heating pad for a couple hours, and I don't get any further work done. Examples of this type of tension might be when I'm watching a movie and you get that trope that happens where someone is like doing something that's clearly not cheating on their spouse, but their spouse walks in a situation that looks like the person might be cheating because, I don't know, they're talking to another person, or maybe they're touching another person's face, but really they're touching that other person's face because that person needed their face touched for some other reason. Maybe the character has magical healing powers and needed, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I'm making this example up. I'm pulling this out of my butt right now. But anyway, you guys know what kind of scene I'm talking about, right? Where like someone walks in and sees what they think is their significant other cheating on them, but clearly as the audience we know it's not. And then they're like, how could you? You're cheating on me. I trusted you. And the other person's like, wait, no, I can explain. And then they're like, don't explain. Don't even bother explaining. I know what I saw. And then, like, as the audience, we're forced to suffer through this tension about nothing. And it's just like, wow, you could have said two sentences to each other and cleared that whole thing up. It just, like, I hate when that happens so much. Not in a way that it keeps me invested. And it's like, oh, I want to stick around and wait until this gets resolved and they make up in the end. Because it's like, no, it's not even worth it. That just made me tense for no reason. So that's one example, but I think that's a trope that pretty much everyone hates at this point. So let me give an example of something that might be a little more controversial that I hate when it comes to tension. So, something that often makes a scene very tense is when you have a character who's telling the truth about something that isn't very believable, like they saw something weird, or maybe they looked like they were framed for something, they looked like they did something but they didn't. Anyway, the character will be talking about what actually happened and telling the truth, and another character will think they're lying. It's a pretty common thing to happen. I cannot stand that. Like, it's to the point where I'm like, turn it the fuck off. This movie, book, TV show, whatever is now beyond redemption because I cannot handle that. So if you guys don't know, which you probably do if you watch this channel, I have pretty bad OCD. I'm medicated for it now, but one of my things with OCD in the past has always been that, like, I can't lie. I just have, like, a thing, like, against lying. Like, it makes me think that the whole world's gonna end, and it, like, elevates my heart rate and freaks me out and makes me just, like, go into a bad place. So I'm always, like, a very directly honest person and have been, and in the past that's gotten me in trouble because I've been too tactless in some situations, just saying what's on my mind. But anyway, it's one of those things where, like, I have experienced times in my life where I've been telling the truth about something and everybody knows that I'm telling the truth about it because I've been open with the fact that my OCD prevents me from lying, and it's actually really difficult because I've had to tell the truth in situations that weren't comfortable for me to do so. So anyway, like, I have been open with people about that, and then sometimes I'll still have someone doubt me or still have someone not think I'm telling the truth, and that tenses my whole body up. I'm just like, oh my god, like, you couldn't insult me worse than that. So when I see it happening to a character, I don't care, like, if I like that character or dislike that character. I don't care. If there's a character being honest and someone doesn't believe them, I cannot handle it. I'm just like, no more. No, I know what this character feels like. I don't want to watch, like, it's not even a thing where it's like, I want to watch you suffer so that then you can get your redemption in the end. It's like, I want this to be over. I'm just going to close my eyes and ears until this part is over. I cannot handle this. So, those are some examples of why I hate tension. So, because I hated tension for a while, I had a problem as a writer where my stories lacked tension. I'm a writer who cares a lot about voice. If you guys couldn't tell from the way I talk on my channel, and if you've read any of my books, I have very stream of consciousness talking type of characters. I just kind of go on tangents, and my characters are all about dialogue and voice and that kind of thing. So a lot of people have been able to, like, get invested in the story from the quirky type of voice that the characters have, but then when they get invested, they get uninvested because it's like, oh wow, there was no tension in the story. Or at least that's how it was for me back when I was in, like, high school and college, before I had to start intentionally adding tension. Intentionally. So here's an example. When I was in college, I wrote this short story for a short story writing class, and we had to do a story that was told, like, in a series of vignettes. So what I did was I told the story of these two boys' friendship, like, from when they were kids up until the end of high school, and they were, like, they loved going to Steak and Shake together, where they hung out with their quirky waitress friend, and they loved listening to Alanis Morissette and going on dates with girls who had gender-neutral names. Like, this was the most, like, hipster, quirky bullshit. Like, you guys know I've always been a manic pixie dream girl from, like, the day I was born. So, anyway, that's what that story was about, and I had other people in the class commenting, like, oh, I love, like, the weird details here, I love, like, the voice here, I love this kind of thing. And then my professor sat me down and was like, your story has no conflict. Like, there's no, you didn't write a story, you just wrote, like, you just wrote, like, a series of people rambling. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do. And she was like, okay, but, like, you need to fix this because there's not a story. And so I think that's when it kind of hit me that I did need to start adding tension to things, because there were inevitably going to be people who would be incredibly bored by it and who would lose interest if I didn't. So now I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I have added tension into my own writing and what kind of things I did to set that up. The main way I enjoy adding tension into something is through setting something up that will be revealed later. As you guys know, there are certain types of tension that I cannot do and will not like and will never write. For example, someone not being believed when they're telling the truth. Like, I can't do that. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't add tension at all. So one type of tension I like is setting up something mysterious or something that we don't know quite yet what it is, and leaving little bits along the way for it to be revealed later. That's one of my favorite kinds of tension to do, because when I'm reading a story or when I'm watching something on TV, that's one of my favorite things to kind of follow along with because I'm always like, ooh, I wonder what that reveal is going to be. I feel like that's pretty obvious, but I'm going to give you some examples of how I've done this.
Who gave you that feedback about something you wrote just being people talking and not having a story?
A professor! You weren't listening.
I overheard it as I was.
Yeah, it was a professor. She was reading the story. Well, if you watch this video, she was reading the story.
Watch the video.
Okay, well then I'll tell you now. She was reading the story that I wrote about a series of vignettes of two guys who were friends all through their life, starting when they were little kids up until the end of high school, and throughout it they did things like go to Steak and Shake and hang out with a quirky waitress and play with the grease-smeared menus and listen to Alanis Morissette together, go on dates with girls who had gender-neutral names that sometimes they were gender neutral, sometimes they weren't, sometimes they had the same names as them because their names were Aaron and Alex, and so they would date girls named Aaron and girls named Alex.
Why are you going so into depth? Is that because there was no overarching story?
Yeah, there was no, like, literally, this was just like, it was straight up mumblecore, dude. Like, so, for my first example, I am going to take a look at One Final Vinyl. This is my young adult novel that is coming out on May 15th, so that is in a little under a month. I'm very excited. If you guys didn't know, you can pre-order this on Amazon, you can pre-order the ebook, and on my website, savylizer.bigcartel.com, you can pre-order a signed paperback. So, go ahead and check that out, linked in the description below. But I'm going to give a couple examples. So when I did the story openings Wordstock collab video, I read some of the beginning of the story and talked about how, you know, the opening line, I've been a walking midlife crisis since the day I was born, and going into the story from there. One of the ways that I first tried to set up tension in the story was on page 3. So in this story, Emma, the teenager who's narrating the story, is very lonely, she feels very isolated, and she's dealing with depression. One of the reasons she's lonely is that one of her best friends has now gone off to college, and she, at the beginning, is kind of in denial about the fact that she might be responsible for her own loneliness in certain ways. So on page 3, I have this whole thing about where she's reminiscing about her friend Haley, and it says, they're talking about how they listened to Pink Floyd's album Dark Side of the Moon together, and they both cried while listening to the song Time. And then right after she goes over that anecdote, it's just one sentence but Haley and I don't really talk much anymore, so I guess none of that matters. And that's kind of where we end that. And then from there, throughout the rest of it, there's like little flashbacks throughout where like she and Haley do something together. You see the way they're connected, and I wanted that to be like little bits for the reader to keep imagining like, okay, but why don't they talk anymore? They seem to have good chemistry, good friendship here. What was going on? Why don't they talk? And then revealing little bits along the way until I get to chapter 13, which is on page 136. So like now we're over halfway through the book, and we get to this point, and that's when we get the whole scene where we figure out the rest of why she and Haley don't get along, and even there we don't finish out the scene, we just start to get a vibe of like, okay, this is what happened the last time they saw each other, but why aren't they friends anymore? And then it's not until later, like 2 chapters later, that you actually find out like the big blowout scene that happened that solidified everything. So that's kind of what I was going for there, a little reveal along the way to figure out what tore these friends apart, even though that's not even the main plot of the story. I wanted that to be something that there was some tension between these friends and tension between the narrator and the reader. The other type of tension I'm going to talk about is sexual tension, which I don't really write much like romance. Like I do write books with romantic subplots, but as you guys know from seeing some of my review videos, I have issues with romance books. Not that like I think that they're bad or anything, like I personally just don't like them because there's always been things about them that have rubbed me the wrong way. So I don't really write romance, but I do write romantic subplots. So when writing Sculpt Yourself, learning how to write a romantic subplot and create tension in a relationship was one of the things that I really had to work on. Because my previous book, Beauty King, didn't have like any romance in it whatsoever. It was, even though it was like a teenage boy and teenage girl main character and it's young adult, I'm sorry if I disappointed anyone by not having them end up together or even like have any sexual tension at all. I didn't want that. I just wanted it to be a friendship kind of thing. But anyway, so in Sculpt Yourself, I decided to try writing some romantic and sexual tension. So a scene where I feel like I did a good job with the tension in this was Amber and Kelly's first date. And the way that I set up that tension was by first of all, telling it from each of their perspectives. So this is an alternating first-person point of view story. So we got Amber's perspective, Kelly's perspective, and Judy's perspective. So when Amber and Kelly go on their first date, we're going back and forth between their perspectives, and neither of them know whether it's a date or not. And it's kind of partially like a commentary on like how in girl culture you can go up to another girl and be like, you're cute, I like you, let's go out. And you still don't know if it's a date because like friends say that to each other. It's weird. So anyway, that's what they were doing basically. They were on this date and the whole time Amber's like nervous, like, is this a date? I hope this is a date. What do I do? And she's like, Kelly's so cool. Why is Kelly so cool all the time? Like, how is she not nervous? And then we switch to Kelly's perspective and Kelly's like, I don't know how I'm able to act so confident all the time because I don't know what the fuck's going on either. So it's that kind of thing back and forth, and then you see it's like slowly building into that moment where they have their first kiss. But this is dragged out between back and forth in their perspectives over multiple chapters. So I wrote some romantic tension. Good job, Savvy. So that was my video on tension. What did you think about this? Let me know your thoughts on tension in the comments below. Let me know if any of this was helpful to you. It wasn't really advice, it was more just me talking about my journey with tension, and all the tension that builds up in my back when a story has tension that I don't like. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment below. Check out all the other videos on the Wordstock playlist that are going up about suspense and tension this week. Again, I've linked those playlists up in the cards, so don't forget to check those out. I will see you guys all again soon. In the meantime, don't forget to support small businesses. Happy writing!